everybody, it's Nicole again with another LSAT lesson, and today we're going to talk about the difference between strict and loose ordering games. If you are not familiar with ordering games, these are sometimes called sequencing games, and it's whenever we're given one set of variables and we're trying to put them in order, either strictly or loosely, which also might mean relative to each other, which I'll explain here in a minute. But whenever we want to think of ordering or sequence, we're thinking that these typically will come in the variables will typically be days of the week, or they might be numbers or places or months of the year, things that we can put in order. And so whenever we talk about, if you see a game that has strict ordering, why do we want to know the difference between both of these? And the reason is we want to be able to recognize the difference because how we diagram is going to be different. And so for what I refer to as strict is simply strict. This means that we have a specific number of spots and we know where they are going to go. Or not, we don't know where they're going to go, but we're trying to figure out where they are going to go. So for example, if we had like 2, 5, 1, 4, 3, obviously there's only 5 spots here. And so if we say third is third, I know that sounds silly, but for the example, we can strictly put number 3 directly in that 3 spot because we know how many spots we have total and what we're working with here. Where on the other hand, if it is a loose ordering game, this means that we're just talking about relative to each other. And so I pulled a kid's worksheet here where we're talking about length, where if we were looking at this and we had rules, let's say that we had a hanger and a stapler and we're talking about which is longer, what the rule here would say is the hanger must be weighed, or we're talking about length. Well, the hanger must be measured before the stapler. Well, all we're talking about is the hanger relative to the stapler, right? But we know the hanger is going to come before the stapler. So whenever we draw that, rather than having these specific spots that we have to fill it in, because we don't know right now about the hanger relative to anybody else. We don't know, oh, the hanger's going third, like we did over here. No, we just know that the hanger is going to come before the stapler. So then if we had a second rule that said the stapler is going to come before the bathtub, ooh, that's very, very, very light. The stapler is going to come before the bathtub. Once again, we just know that the stapler comes before the bathtub. And so whenever the difference between what these rules might look like is that for a simply strict game, it might tell you something like A is third. So if our variables were A, B, C, D, and E, and it tells us straight up that A is third, we're going to go ahead and just put A right in number 3 because it's strictly there. Or another example, A goes to the movies on Wednesday. So let's say that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe A has a different activity every day of the week, so we know that this is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. If A goes to the movies on Wednesday, we can put A simply right into that spot. Where on the other hand, if we're talking about relative, or we're talking about our variables relative to each other, if we go with the A, B, C, D, E example again, but we come over to this right side, and we say C is before A and B, well, can we put, if we have 5 variables, can we put C down in any specific spot, any strict spot? No. But what do we know? We know that we can put C before A and before B because we know that relatively C is before, or relative to A, C is before, or C relative to B, C is before. Where the relatively loose games get a little bit tricky is we don't know if there's any relationship between A and B, right? Because our rule just talks about C relative to those, so we don't know about A or B. And then lastly, I have C is taller than A and B. So this is a different way to word it, but we would diagram this just the same as we did number 1 here, right? We're saying, hey, C is taller than A, and we're saying C is taller than B. If you're struggling with your diagramming at this point, sometimes what people will do is they will say, instead of combining it like I did, they'll start by saying, okay, well, C is taller than A, and then C is taller than B. And then if you have a variable that's the same as, you can connect it then. And so what does this look like when we actually get to games? All right, so I have 2 examples here. And you can go ahead and pause this video if you like for a minute and see if you can do this on your own, and then we'll do it together. All right, so for the first one on our left, it says 5 people. So we have H, I, K, N, and V. So we have H, I, K, N, and V are to be scheduled as contestants on a TV show, 1 contestant per day for 5 consecutive days, Monday through Friday. So the fact that they're giving us a specific time frame to put them in is a hint, right? Because we know now that we have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And we know that we're putting them into a specific spot. The following restrictions governing the schedules of the contestants must be observed. Okay. So let's go ahead and practice this. So N is not scheduled for Monday. So we can go ahead and say, all right, well, we know N is not here. 2 says, if H is scheduled for Monday, N is scheduled for Friday. So if H is on Monday, Nancy is scheduled on Friday. Cool. I'm going to show you what I would do with this in a minute after we get through it. This is a little bit tougher of a game, but I just wanted us to be able to recognize that this is a strict ordering game. Then the next one says, if Nancy is scheduled for Tuesday, I is scheduled for Monday. So if Nancy is scheduled for Tuesday, then Iris is scheduled for Monday. And then lastly, we have Kate is scheduled for the next day after the day for which Victor is scheduled. So this is kind of a tricky rule, so we have to think about it. Kate is scheduled for the next day after the day for which Victor is scheduled. So whenever Victor goes, what does that mean happen? What happens? Kate is right afterwards. So we know that these are a strict pair and they have to go together. So if we were to consider this on our strict diagram right here, where can K not go? Yeah, K can't go first because, why can't K go first? Because there's nowhere for V to go. And then also we would know that V cannot go last. I'm going to go ahead and post another video of how I would diagram this beyond what I did with these rules. What I want you to take away from this part of the video is just the difference of what a strict diagramming video is, and I'll go ahead and link the other video. So now let's go ahead and jump over to this other kind to see what is the difference between what we just did, which is strict, to here that is going to be loose. So here our variables are a farmer, which I actually grew up on a farm, so that's why I picked this one. A farmer harvests 8 separate fields. We have our different fields, G, H, J, K, L, M, P, and T. Each field is harvested exactly once, and no 2 fields are harvested simultaneously. So they're telling us, hey, we're going to have 8 that go in order, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But why isn't this strict? Well, once the harvesting of a field begins, no other fields are harvested until the harvesting of that field is complete. The farmer harvests the fields in an order consistent with the following conditions. And it's going to be because all of our rules are talking about the letters that are relevant to each other. So we might come up and actually put them in specific spots after we do our diagram, but to keep in mind, what we really want to focus on is just the relationships between these letters. All right, so number 1 says, both P and G are harvested at some time before K. So we know that P and G are both coming before K. That's all we know. We just know P and G relative to K, they're coming first. If I was, these are the kinds of things that you want to start thinking about on the test. But when you're thinking about certain kinds of objections or rules, we want to think, okay, well, P and G can't have to come before K. So technically, we know P and G cannot be last because then there would be no room for K to go. And vice versa, on the opposite end, we know just after rule 1, we know that at least two letters have to go before K, so we know that K can't be first or second. You don't want to go through and make all of these rules like I did here on your test. You'll probably run out of time, but as you're learning, these are the things you want to be thinking about so you can be really quick on your feet. Or I guess really quick with your pencil. I don't even know what the right way to say that would be. But then next we have both H and L are harvested at some time before J. Well, if H and L are both harvested before J, we have no overlap between letters. So far we have a rule for P, G, K, H, L, and J. And the same thing here, right? J can't go first or second because at least 2 people have to go before him. And H and L can't go last. So one thing cool that's going on already is we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 8 variables total. We already know that 8 of them cannot go last. But let's go ahead and go on to our third rule, which says K is harvested at some time before M, but after L. Okay, so this one gets a little bit trickier, right? So we're saying K is before M. So let's start with that one. K is before M, but then it comes and says, but after, so K is after L. So we know that L is going to come before K. And so this is why I would use pencil on my test, and I would actually all I would do here is change my diagram a little bit by where I have my L, I would just switch it with my H like this so that I don't have to redo anything. So I'm going to put my L here, and I'm going to keep this my H, and then I don't even need this L because this L stands for both of them. And so what I just did there is, so now let's talk about L for just a minute. Let's talk about this L for a minute. So you threw in, oh, that's like really dark. We threw in this new rule that L has to be before K, right? Or K has to be after L. So what did that change for L? What do we know about L? Right now, what we know about L, so these are questions we want to be asking ourselves, is L has to be before K, L has to be before M, even though K is before M, and then L has to be before J. So this is all relative, right? So we want to ask ourselves, is there any relationship, though, between H and K? No, because there's no lines connecting those. So we can't say anything about that. All right, so then let's go on to our last, which is T is harvested at some time before M. So right here, all I'm going to do is go in here to my M and just put a T before it. And so all of our letters have been used at least once. And so whenever we finish like this, the 2 things that I like to think about are what letters can be first and what letters can be last. And how we determine this is what letters can be first are those letters that don't have anything on the left side of them. But you have to be careful here because if there's this T is a little bit tricky because I have it down there in my tree, but there's nothing to the left of T, right? There's nothing that has to come before T. All we know is that M has to come after T. So technically in this game, P, G, L, H, and T all could potentially go first. And then when we consider what can go last, what we're looking for is what are the letters that have nothing after it. And the only letters that don't have anything after it are going to be M and J. So the only 2 letters that could go last are M or J. And so I really hope this helps you kind of understand the difference of how you're going to diagram strict or loose ordering games. It's not something to stress out about. It's just something to be aware about so that you can be quick on your feet as you're diagramming. There's never going to be a question on the LSAT that asks, which is this a strict or loose ordering game? It's all about is categorizing things. Does it make it easier or more helpful for you so you determine what you should do on your diagrams? And I hope this helps. And if you're interested, please subscribe for more LSAT tips, and hopefully you'll find these helpful.